We've been focusing on adding integers and doing that effectively and efficiently without having to use a number line. We're going to change our focus a little bit to subtracting. Good news, though, is it's not going to be too far off from adding. So lesson 5 is on understanding the subtraction of integers and other rational numbers. So again, we can do this with positive, negatives, whole numbers, or fractions, decimals. They follow the same rules. All right, so what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to imagine we're playing this integer game. Okay, so let's pretend that I am holding 2 cards in my hand. There's a 4 and there's a 2. Don't think of this as like a normal deck of cards that you might play different games with. These are just special cards, integer cards. It says show that discarding or subtracting a positive card, which is the same as show that discarding a positive card, which is the same as subtracting a positive card, decreases the value of the hand. Here's what I mean. Okay, we have 4 plus 2 right here. Okay, let's just start here. Now remember, we start at 0, we go to 4. Then the second number, this plus 2 here, we start where we ended up at 4, and we're going to move 2 units to the right because it's positive. Using vectors, we know that 4 plus 2 equals 6. Okay, so now what happens when we remove it? So if we slide down here a little bit, you can see that we're discarding. So let's pretend I throw that 2 out. Okay, throw it in the discard pile. I'm going to get rid of it here. Okay, so remember, I was at 0. I went to 4. That was at 4, and I went 2 to the right to get to 6. This is what happened up here. So I'm just copying that down, and I'm going to get out of the way. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that 2. Hold on here. I want to use, let's use a form of red. So I am going to get, that didn't work. Try again. There we go. Okay, I am going to get rid of that 2. So what happens when I get rid of that 2? Discard it. Where am I at? I'm at the 4. Okay, so if I were to discard this 2 or subtract this 2 off after I've added on, I stay at the 4. Another way we can think of it is picking up its opposite. So instead of discarding that 2, remember the other day we worked on opposites. And if I have 2 plus a negative 2, so let's say I have those 4 and 2 in my hand, and then I pick up a negative 2. Well, let's put it on the diagram here and see what happens. So again, 0 to 4. And then I'm going to add 2 to that. So from here, I'm going to go to the right 2. And now I want to add on a negative 2. So from here, what happens if I add 2 units to the left? Where do we end up? We end up at 4. Okay, so subtracting or discarding, and that's what this was saying up here. Discarding or subtracting. So if I throw that 2 out of my hand, I'm still at a 4. Well, the other thing I could do is I could add on a negative 2. I could add on the opposite. So whether you think of it as subtracting 2 or adding on a negative 2, you end up at the same spot. In both places, we end up at 4. And that's what we're going to write in this part here. It says removing or subtracting a positive card, such as the 2, changes the score in the same way as adding a card whose value is means the same as opposite. You got to think back a few lessons, and that's called the additive inverse. Remember, additive inverses add to give you 0. They're opposites. In this case, adding the corresponding negative such that, oops, sorry. For minus 2 is the same thing as 4 plus. You know what? I'm going to have to stop for here for a second. It was actually, we got to 6 both times. So I am going to change this for a second. I apologize. And I'm going to say that 6 minus 2 is the same thing as 6 plus a negative 2. Okay, and I'll come back here and let you write that down, but I want to show you. Here we were at 6, okay? And when we discarded the 2, we went back to 4. Here we were at 6, and when we added a negative 2, we went back to 4. That's where the 6 came from. Okay, so subtracting a positive card changes the score as a way of adding the opposite. Okay? And that was when we were talking about subtracting a positive number. What happens when we subtract a negative number? So let's try that. Okay, so notice we have 4 plus a negative 2 here. So let's represent that. I go from 0 to 4. And then I'm going to add a negative 2. So I'm going to go 2 units to the left. So from 4, I go 2 units to the left. And this was 4. Ooh. This is 4, and this is negative 2, and we end up at 2. Okay, so this is what we've been doing. Like if I gave you 4 plus negative 2, just put it on the number line, that's what we're doing. Okay, so it says, how does removing a negative card change the score or value of the hand? Well, let's see what happens. Okay, what if I think of it as, getting rid of this negative 2. Getting rid of the negative 2. So let's do this problem here. I'm going to go from 0 to 4. Now I'm going to add a negative 2. So I'm going to go 2 units to the left. Oops. Not what I meant to do. And now I'm going to get rid of that negative 2. So, see how I'm minusing off a negative 2? So, I'm going to get rid of that negative 2. So, if I get rid of it, it kind of looks like we're at 4. So, how does removing a negative card change the score of the hand? It kind of looks like instead of being at 2, we're just going to increase it by 2. But let's see. Let's look at this another way. If I go from 0 to 4, again, then I'm going to add a negative 2. So I'm going 2 units to the left. So from here, I'm going to go 2 units left. Oh, I did it again. And now I'm going to add a positive 2 on. So now I'm at 2, and I'm going to go 2 units to the right. And guess where I end up? At 4. So, whether you think of it as removing a negative 2 or adding a 2, we end up in the same spot. So, guess what? We're going to fill this out again. Removing or subtracting a negative card changes the score the same way as adding a card whose value is the additive inverse or opposite. In this case, adding the corresponding positive such that 4 minus a negative 2, 4 minus a negative 2, I know, get on there, is the same thing as 4 plus 2. And what that means is subtracting a number is the same as adding its opposite. And I'm going to give you in the next video, hopefully, a little phrase that'll help you remember how to do that.